Hey guys, welcome to the Beauty School Bobbi podcast. We are so excited to be here today with Gil Romero from Make-Up Designory. Gil, tell us what you're doing here. Tell us what you do in the industry. Let's talk about what you're doing at Tennessee School of Beauty right now.
All right, so I am a makeup artist and an educator. I work for a company called Make-Up Designory. Tennessee School of Beauty is one of our partner schools. So what our plan essentially here is that when we bring on new teachers at a partner school, we have to send out one of our educators to go in and train their faculty so that they become MUD certified faculty members. So that's what I'm doing here. 3 of your faculty here will become faculty certified at the end of their training.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you here. And obviously, we talk a lot about being this like little school in like little Knoxville, Tennessee, but having this connection to Make-Up Designory is really, really cool. So you all share this amazing education that students are actually able to get without going to New York, without going to LA, or at least get the base before they go on. One of my favorite students that we've had in the program actually went on and continued and took her full program at Make-Up Designory in New York City.
Oh, fantastic.
And so she's working in New York still at this amazing salon, and like her whole life has changed just because she had this experience here and got to go on and take that there. So I think it's really cool that we have this connection, even though we're just little Knoxville and we've got somebody like you coming in to teach the teachers, and everyone's really excited about that.
Well, thank you. You know, we used to be obviously a much smaller school, and we still think of ourselves as kind of a small school.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's where it starts. And, you know, I love your campus. I've been here for 3 days now, and it's been fantastic.
Thank
you for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're pumped to have you here. So I want to talk to you about how you got into this. Obviously, makeup is the part of the beauty industry right now that is exploding. And so you got into it, though, at a very, very, very different time. So I want to talk about that and kind of how you got started into this, and then I want to talk to you about what the makeup world looks like now. So how did you get into this? So
I was really young, 7, 8 years old, and just kind of exploring all different types of makeups. I came across some books inside of libraries that would talk about, you know, makeup techniques and old monsters from old films and things like that I would kind of recreate and do these things myself. And I kind of always thought of this as a hobby. I never really envisioned myself being a makeup artist until I became in my early teens. And then at that point, I started kind of pushing myself out there, doing a lot of Halloween makeups. I would, some stores sold Halloween types of products that I would then reach out to different customers and say, hey, I can do this for you, I can do that for you, and just kind of building clientele there, going to small community theaters, churches. I did a lot of work for churches. Really? Wait, like doing what? You know, one of my uncles is a pastor, and when I first started doing stuff for him, he would always be like, "Can you make me the devil?" And I was like, "You want to be the devil? Yeah, make me a devil. We're doing a presentation, and I thought it would be really funny, and it was pretty cool, you know, an opportunity to kind of jump in and put prosthetics on somebody, and a different venue, definitely a different venue and atmosphere for me. I'm like, oh, church theater too. That's just neat. I've never thought about this. I've never heard of anyone else that has done makeup, like as a makeup artist at a church. Like that's new. You start thinking about it, you know, obviously if they're doing anything that reflects around the birth of Jesus and nativity, perhaps not everybody there has beards, so fake beards and little makeup stuff like that. Yeah. And it becomes important. Yeah. You know? Making somebody look a little bit more angelic, all sorts of different things that makeup artists can do. You know, makeup artistry is not really as unattainable as we sometimes make it feel. There's a lot of stuff going on locally. We just have to have places to look. Yeah, definitely. So you did that. You're kind of doing your own thing. And then what happened from there? So, you know, as my career started to grow more, I did some training. I did some professional training. I did some amateur training, read a lot of books. Eventually, I got into doing music and kind of more fashion-oriented makeup. It wasn't really my passion at that point, but I was just excited to be doing makeup. Yeah. And then a few years later, I kind of bridged my way into kind of doing more film and TV stuff.
cool. So what was the education requirement at that time? Were there any where you were living? What was required of you to work as a makeup artist?
So, as let's see, start with my aunt was a cosmetologist, and as a teenager, my aunt encouraged me to try to get my cosmetology license. She said, in order to be a makeup artist in film and TV, you have to have your cosmetology license. I was a little apprehensive because I do not have a passion for hair. I may have a fear of hair, actually. But I did go to a lot of trade shows. She used to take me to a lot of shows, so I got to experience, what that side of the industry was like. At a certain point, I decided, wait, this is definitely not what I wanted to do. So I had a fear, I'm not going to be able to get into film and television. And then I actually started to meet some film and television makeup artists and found out that it wasn't actually required, especially in California, to be a cosmetologist,
Yes.
to work in the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
Although, looking back, I kind of think, I wish I would have. I think it would have benefited me tremendously to have stopped in and had a license right from the very beginning.
Okay, so let's talk about MakeUp Designory. How did you get introduced to MakeUp Designory? How did this come into your life? I know you've been there for a long time, so how did this all happen?
So our current director of education, Paul Thompson, I reached out to Paul, as Paul used to teach a small animatronics course, basically radio-controlled creatures and puppets and things out of his garage. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I really want to take this animatronics course that you're teaching. Is it possible I could do something here with you? And he was in between projects, but his freelance career he was trying to juggle a bit. And he said, I have these friends that are just opening up a makeup school, and they teach a very, very similar course. Why don't I hook you up with them and you talk to them? So actually, I was one of Mudd's first students. I took part of a course. Which was just the animatronics portion of a course there. So I met them that way.
That's so cool. So you're one of the first graduates.
Yeah, I didn't graduate from a full program from them, unfortunately, but I graduated just from, I think I took 6 weeks of a 9-week course that they taught there.
Yeah. And then did you just stay? Were you like, no, I'm here now, I'm going to teach? What happened?
I left. I went back and started working again, and I guess it was probably about 9 months later, I got a call from them saying, we have a very large class coming up, and we could use your help co-teaching this class with the instructor at that point in time. His name was Carl. And I was like, wow, how big's the class? They said, I think the class is going to be 8 students. And I was like, wow, that's a huge class. At the time, we were really small.
Yeah, when
small.
we did that interview with Tate, if you haven't listened, we did an interview with the owner of Mudd. It's on the podcast. You guys can go back and listen. But he was talking to us about how small it was starting out. That very first, open the doors, we're having a makeup class. Yeah, I think he said it was 7 or something, or 3 maybe.
I think
and
it was
in the beginning
3.
it was 3. Yeah, and then going on, and I was like, it's so crazy knowing what MakeUp Designory is now, and all of the locations and the thousands of people that have been certified at this point. I mean, maybe hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure what that number is, but I know it's huge. I think that it's really cool to see that starting point and watching how this company has grown to what it is, to know that it didn't just start like this. It didn't just happen that everyone said we're going to teach makeup and it's going to be so successful, because at that time it just wasn't something that everyone was doing. It's not something that as now everyone's watching on their phones all day long. They're seeing it, they're inundated with it. That just wasn't the case at the time. So you kind of got into it, before it all took off. So when do you think that surge happened? Do you know a time that you guys really just exploded, or did it happen slowly?
Those first few years we grew kind of exponentially. I want to say within, 2 or 3 years, we grew out of the spaces that we were in. Tate's office originally, it was half the size of this room here. It was very small. The campus was very small. And over those 2 or 3 years, we started to acquire different spaces around the block. And within those 3 years, for sure, we grew to the space of we needed a bigger building. And the growth continued until we opened up the New York campus in 2005. So we were on a steady upward incline until easily about 2009. And then at that point, I feel like we kind of then plateaued, which was fine, because we're getting to a point of where each region, I think, can only support so many makeup artists coming out of a school and maintain quality, and that for us is a big important aspect of what we do. We have to maintain the quality of what we do in Los Angeles, and we have to do it in New York. We have to with our partner schools, the whole thing. So,
absolutely. I mean, worldwide at this point. You were telling me a couple of days ago about being in Milan and getting to see those campuses. What was that like for you to set up a school in a different country? What was that process like?
Yeah, I'm not involved so much in the very beginning part when they're setting up the campuses and the other locations, but I do get to go to them when they're quite new. It's a difficult process because you do rely on somebody else to understand laws and regulations for their locale. You do have to do a tremendous amount of research before we even establish the school to make sure that there is enough work there to actually support the community.
Mm-hmm.
We're never trying to just set up classes without being responsible enough to make sure that your students can get employed.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of work. It's much more different than somebody saying, I want to teach this specific class, but you have to know that there are job opportunities there.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not a bad idea to be kind of at the forefront of some of it. When we're looking at beauty training, for instance, beauty is something you can teach makeup artists to do and they can work truly worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're developing specialty courses like the effects classes that we have that you have to be, I think, truly responsible because that sort of work isn't necessarily worldwide, although it's different locations across the world.
What's like something that stands out to you as like a really big difference at a location, like culturally, whether it's maybe you're teaching more of something than something else, like if in Knoxville, is there something you're teaching at your location in Spain that's like a little bit different? Like have you had to adjust culturally the education, or is it all pretty much the same? Is makeup pretty much the same around the world?
It's a good question. It's actually something we've taught even before we started to kind of branch out different locations, is that, makeup artists have to be adaptable, they have to be flexible, you have to be receptive of different cultures, and you're going to experience more and more cultures. Europe, I think, is a bit unique in that it is more of a melting pot of different cultures. I think that was kind of a unique and different experience for me to go there. Dubai, when we had our studio inside Dubai, was definitely a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the perception there isn't as open and receptive to different cultures, although I think they are. They think they are, but they're not as perhaps. They weren't as perhaps adaptable to some of the changes that makeup needs to go on. We're talking about different eye looks and how a makeup artist would need to learn how to do everything from a natural to something that is perhaps more exaggerated, like an Arabian style eye. A makeup artist should be trained not just to do one or the other. They need to be adaptable enough to do everything in between.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool that you all have been able to make that all happen and for it to be the same and be able to certify people just all over the world. I think it's so great for what you guys are doing for the makeup community. We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. If you or someone you know is interested in becoming a salon professional, contact Tennessee School of Beauty, the leader in cosmetology education since 1930. Offering both full and part-time programs in cosmetology, aesthetics, and nails, see why more than 20,000 graduates recommend Tennessee School of Beauty. Visit them at TennesseeSchoolofBeauty.edu or call me at 865-588-7878. Hey guys, welcome back. So I wanted to talk to you next about how different the beauty or the makeup industry is and how much it's changed. I mean, even over the last 5-10 years, it's completely different. We hear a lot about YouTube and people, YouTube tutorials, these influencers. Do you actually know what you're doing from learning on YouTube? There's a lot that's covered in a makeup program and with education. Something we obviously feel is really important is sanitation, those kinds of things that you're not always learning on YouTube. So I know things are really different. So talk to me about how you guys have had to adjust to that. Have you guys had to make any changes to kind of adapt to what kind of student is coming in the door?
So I would say just in general, I think social media is a great tool. It's very, very useful. And I think us as makeup artists and people who've been in the industry for years before social media, it's important that we embrace it and that we kind of get on board. It's a great opportunity for us to kind of continually showcase our work, which is, generally a lot of makeup artists I know are very, very humble, so it feels a little strange to kind of sit out there and put their work out there regularly. From a kind of a bragging standpoint, but it's important for everybody to be able to see quality work. When it comes to stuff like YouTube and information that's achieved out there, there's still a lot of great information out there, but it's very difficult for somebody who doesn't have a background in makeup to be able to filter out, I suppose would be the best way, to be able to filter out the misinformation that's out there. So if a student is interested in really learning makeup, I wouldn't steer them necessarily away from YouTube, but I would say you need mentors and you need an opportunity to practice makeup very regularly and have somebody be able to help you kind of critique and self-critique your makeup. This is where I think that sometimes schools do a really, really great job. And YouTube is still a great place to be able to get all types of information out there. And I know a couple sources that I go to regularly just to see what people are doing and pick up different things. Different things outside my craft I definitely try to look at on YouTube. But if you were in the medical industry, you're not going to go out and seek medical advice from YouTube.
Right.
And I think we have to be very conscious that in the industry that we're in, we're not just doing makeup on ourselves, we're doing makeup on other people. And there are dangerous, perhaps, practices that people are learning on YouTube that they can injure somebody, cross-contaminate somebody's product, and offer injury and illness to people. And we have to be careful of that.
Yeah.
And because we have the potential to injure somebody else, we can't base our education purely on something like YouTube.
Right. I mean, it's covered like day one in mud. I mean, it's the first thing you learn is sanitation. And it's funny when we have guest speakers come in sometimes that are not trained through Make-Up Designory.
Yeah.
It's funny, our students will, they'll be like, no, don't do that. You didn't sanitize. You didn't, and they're calling it out. And I love seeing that because I'm like, that's the important thing. That's the thing that you're here for, is to know that you're being safe. And that's number one. And so I like that they are picking up on that so fast and that they'll recognize it in other artists. So I think that that's something that they have that's really cool, that they get to, just kind of share and make sure that they're being safe to their clients also.
I had a graduate of ours, his name is Hugo Villasenor. He won an Emmy last year for his work on team with Star Trek. He told me a story a couple of years ago how he would interview makeup artists and have them essentially line up their stations and do makeups. And as he walked through, he said, without even asking, he's like, I could identify who were MUD students just by the way that they set up their station, organized their product. He said they always seemed to be the most organized and worked cleanly. And I thought it was a neat compliment. It was definitely a neat compliment.
Definitely, because that's something that you all, it matters to you. And so it's not something that you guys have let go through the years. I'm sure that was something from the beginning that you guys taught and focused on. And that is a part of you, and having you be a part of the school for so long, it is really cool that you get to see that happen even this long after.
I mean, with something, again, with a health concern, it's important that we not only look to what is the expectation in the industry, is that we help to push that forward and kind of set a new standard. Yeah.
So where do you see the makeup industry going? What do you see big changes ahead for the school, for just the industry in general? What's going to happen next?
I thought about that in detail, and I'm probably unique to other people. I see different things. I see different changes, especially having the opportunity to kind of travel and go some places that are outside of the U.S. When I look at makeup artists that are outside of the U.S., I see that a lot of them actually have really strong skills in hair and makeup, that it's an expectation that your makeup artists are also hairstylists and vice versa. And for us, it is limiting here. It is not always the expectation. So my perception is that I see the industry changing to be more of that kind of platform here. So I think it's going to become more and more important for makeup artists to become licensed cosmetologists or estheticians, because they are going to have to supplement that makeup artistry skill set. I think that's just the way it's going. Also, productions and photographers and employers essentially don't necessarily want to pay two different people if they don't have to.
Right.
So it makes a lot more sense for us to become more well-trained, broaden our skill sets. So I see the industry changing where we're going to see a lot more makeup artists and hairstylists that have combined skills, and maybe productions starting to require licensed professionals.
Yeah, and that'll affect things so much more where you are in Los Angeles than kind of what makeup artists are doing here in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So I think that like working together on all of that and keeping that, that communication open of what's maybe already happening in an area that, but again, it's going to be a completely different need or change things up, regionally. And that's going to affect you guys a lot more than
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight,
right,
obviously, but it'll be a progressive change, I think.
Well, I'm all for that, and I think all the education is obviously we're super supportive of getting the most education that you can get and giving yourself the most opportunity. I think that that's what we talk to students a lot about is, and you just said it, if you can charge or if you can work for somebody and they can pay you hair and makeup and you can do more for them, it's better than just kind of compartmentalizing yourself into like, I only do makeup, I only do hair, I only do skin. I think it's good to be able to do it all. So I think that that's important.
Ultimately, you become more valuable.
Yeah, definitely. So who are you looking up to right now? Who's inspiring you in the industry? Who are you following?
Obviously, my expertise is currently now more film and television directed, and I encourage a lot of people to be taking a look at the work of the makeup artists who win our awards and recently just won the awards. And I think a standout is a makeup artist named Kazuhiro Tsugi, and he just won the Academy Award with Vivian Baker for his makeup work on Bombshell. Kazu's work is tremendous. He's excels at anything that he does. He excels at everything that he does, I truly encourage everybody to be taking a look at him as an example. And he's also a very, very humble guy, and as fantastic as he is, he's also very, very critical of himself. And I think that's kind of a important trait in a makeup artist, is that no matter how great we are, we still kind of evaluate our work and see where we can improve.
Yeah, that's probably a big characteristic of makeup artists is the perfectionism, because I think that it's an artistry. I think it's very easy to get obsessed with it. And I think that goes back to you saying to have somebody else to kind of critique you and to just kind of keep you in check a little bit, to say like, no, you are doing a good job, instead of I'm sure it can become an obsession. And I think that a lot of the stuff that you're doing with the special effects and all the, the makeup that you're doing, that's a little more magical or a little more like it's in your head. So you're like, I've got to put this out here. This is what I'm thinking. And oh no, that's not what I'm thinking. Like it didn't come out the way that I thought. So I'm sure it takes a long time to kind of go back and forth. So I bet that is probably a common characteristic of makeup artists too. So just have that like obsessiveness also.
Yeah. I say most makeup artists are, I also hear a lot of makeup artists tell me that, the second that you stop doing that and kind of looking at work and thinking your work is fantastic is probably about the time you should probably step out of the business, because you need to be hungry, you need to be looking at constantly learning and developing your skills.
Yeah, so talking about that, I wanted to ask you, I know this isn't on like the prep sheet of questions, but I want to ask you, just thinking as you were talking, what is your like percentage wise, how much are you doing makeup artistry now versus school stuff? You're the educator of the school or the director of the school in Los Angeles. How much do you get to, not teaching, not at MakeUp Designory, get to do makeup artistry?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
You said earlier when we were off camera, you mentioned something about watching me for a minute and seeing how comfortable I was when I was doing stuff. And I was thinking to myself that you were looking at it from a makeup artistry perspective, but I'm looking at it through a different set of eyes now. Is it all revolves around somebody's passion? And although I feel like I'm a pretty good makeup artist and I really, really love makeup, at some point my passion obviously had to shift for me to be able to start to sacrifice my art for what I do now. So my passion truly is in education now.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy seeing the impact that teachers can make. Sometimes it's not just me, but there's many different amazing teachers that are out there. And so that definitely pulls me away from my work a lot.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have maybe 1 or 2 jobs a year to still keep me into it, but it's also it also harkens me back to a time of where work was coming so much that I probably didn't have quite the passion in education at that point in time and sharing my knowledge. But there are guys out there, I was talking to you about the makeup artist Dick Smith. He had a point of transition from when he stopped working professionally and really started focusing on education and giving back. And that became a little bit more rewarding, I think. That definitely became a little bit more rewarding. And then being a parent, obviously, working in the film and TV business is challenging.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hours. And sooner or later, sometimes you have to make a decision between, am I going to continue working this many hours, or am I going to refocus my career and allow myself to focus on my children and family? So,
yeah. All right. So, what advice do you have for beauty school students or somebody that's thinking about going into coming into the beauty industry? What advice can you give them?
So, my advice would be the same as students come to our school. Is obviously I always encourage our students to kind of pursue their passion, and if this is truly their passion, then no matter what, they should find a way. Start small. When you can go to school, I want you to go to school, finish school, get licensed, do the things that you need to do to support your goals. And then the most important thing I think we can do is practice. It's the thing that I see that some of our younger students, I have to push them a little bit more. Obviously, when they're in school, they practice a good amount. They're practicing for several hours a day. But I tell my students that, so are the other 100, 150 students. They're all practicing the same amount as you. So what's going to make you different? The thing that's going to make you different is how much are you practicing outside of school? How much are you practicing once you've finished school? Don't wait for a client to sit down in your chair for you to practice your craft. Grab a friend, grab a model, grab a parent, grab a sibling, grab somebody, and do this all the time. Perfect your craft and continue to seek continuing education. That's really, really important. It's always what's going to set you apart. And you're going to meet people of like mind and other peers, and then they're going to help to escalate your career and your skill level as a makeup artist and hairstylist.
Yeah, well, I love that. It's such great advice, and thank you so much for being here today. I know that we can follow you at MakeUp Designory. Do you have a personal Instagram that you share, that like any of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I do. Usually at Mud Romero is what I use.
Okay.
And yes, you'll see my cooking and my car and other makeup stuff that I'm doing in between. It really is kind of a glimpse at my life.
Love. We'll definitely be sure to follow you, and make sure you're following us at Beauty School Bobbi. You can watch all the videos and listen to all the podcasts at beautyschoolbobbi.com, and listen to wherever you're listening to podcasts, and catch us on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing and liking, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.